Zizhi Tongjian Chronicles of Han 7. This video stays true to the original text, featuring readings in both classical and vernacular Chinese or English. This sweeping historical narrative spans a long epoch, commencing its chapters in the Renqian year of the Jupiter cycle and gently drawing the curtain in the Bingshi year, encompassing a magnificent total of 15 grand and turbulent years. During the illustrious and benevolent reign of Emperor Wen of Han, as recorded in the latter half of his annals, in the majestic winter of the 11th year of the former era, the Renqian year, 169 BC, the emperor embarked on a grand and arduous journey, personally gracing the distant and bitter lands of the Dai Kingdom. When the ice melted and the first breath of spring emerged in the first lunar month, His Majesty successfully concluded his royal inspection and safely departed from the Dai Kingdom, making his triumphant return to the flourishing capital of Chang'an. In the scorching summer month of June, devastating news arrived. The beloved Prince Hui of Liang, Lu Yi, tragically passed away at a tender age. To everyone's profound sorrow, he died without leaving behind any male heir to inherit his royal lineage. Seeing this, the profoundly loyal and brilliant talent Jia Yi passionately submitted another memorial to the emperor, urgently crying out, "Your Majesty, if you do not resolutely establish institutional regulations right now to curb them, given the treacherous and turbulent trends of today, in just 1 or 2 generations of royal succession, these arrogant vassal kings will act with reckless abandon and become utterly uncontrollable. Their forces will take deep, unshakable root and grow overwhelmingly powerful. By then, the majestic laws and decrees of our great Han dynasty will become dead letters, impossible to enforce across the realm. Your Majesty, the only solid bulwarks you can currently rely on to defend the empire against powerful foes, and the sole mighty forces that the future crown prince can safely depend upon, are, looking far and wide, merely the 2 vassal kingdoms of Huaiyang and Dai, and absolutely nothing else. The bitter and cold Dai Kingdom directly borders the fierce Xiongnu to the north. Living cheek by jowl with such a tiger-like, formidable enemy, it would be a true blessing if it could merely manage to survive and preserve itself. As for the Huaiyang Kingdom, compared to those massive vassal states wielding heavy military power, it is as insignificant as a tiny black mole resting on a person's face. This pitiful speck of land is only good enough to serve as a tempting morsel of meat to bait the large kingdoms, utterly lacking the substantial strength required to intimidate or defend against any potential rebellions. Right now, the absolute power of life and death over the empire rests firmly in Your Majesty's hands. Yet, the feudal domains you personally established and apportioned have caused your own flesh and blood to become nothing more than a succulent piece of bait for others to devour. How could such an arrangement possibly be called a brilliant and far-sighted strategy of statecraft? Your humble servant has a modest strategy. I passionately implore Your Majesty to take the vast territories of the Huainan Kingdom to significantly expand the strength of the Huaiyang Kingdom. Simultaneously, swiftly adopt and appoint an heir for the recently deceased Prince of Liang, and carve out 2 or 3 connected frontier cities from the north of Huaiyang, adding them alongside the prosperous eastern commandery to infinitely bolster the mighty Liang Kingdom. If Your Majesty finds the aforementioned plan unsuitable and impossible to implement, we could alternatively mobilize the Prince of Dai from the north, relocating him to establish a heavily fortified capital in the strategic city of Suiyang, fiercely dominating the region. In this grand design, the newly restructured, massive territory of the Liang Kingdom will rise majestically from Xinqi, stretching fiercely northward all the way to the turbulent banks of the Yellow River. Meanwhile, the expanded Huaiyang Kingdom will swallow up the vital central hub of Qin County like a behemoth, extending its domineering reach southward to connect directly with the mighty Yangtze River. With such impregnable walls of iron and bronze forged, those heavily armed and powerful vassal lords harboring sinister, rebellious ambitions will have their courage utterly shattered, forever terrified and absolutely daring not to plot any treason. The incredibly formidable Liang kingdom possesses strength entirely sufficient to act as an indestructible shield, fiercely repelling the northern kingdoms of Qi and Zhao. And the vast Huaiyang kingdom definitely holds the power to clamp down like iron chains, firmly guarding against the southern kingdoms of Wu and Chu. From then on, Your Majesty can sleep soundly on a high pillow, free forever from the nightmarish anxieties of rebellious traders east of the Shao Mountains. This is truly a monumental achievement that will secure unparalleled peace and prosperity for your descendants, lasting through 2 generations and well into eternity. At present, the empire appears deceptively tranquil and completely at peace on the surface. But that is merely a stroke of luck because those arrogant and fiercely martial vassal kings are currently young and their wings are not yet fully grown. Wait just a few short years. Once they grow into adulthood and bear their vicious fangs, Your Majesty will absolutely witness with your own eyes a cataclysmic, blood-soaked rebellion of apocalyptic proportions. Thinking back to those times, the successive monarchs of the Qin state racked their brains day and night, exhausting the sheer strength of their entire nation in bloody battles just to utterly eradicate the apocalyptic disaster of fragmentation caused by the 6 states east of the pass. Yet today, possessing the absolute and overwhelming power to command the entire world, where a mere nod of your chin or a wave of your finger makes everything go exactly as you desire, Your Majesty sits highly aloof and watches with folded arms. To stand by and allow an apocalyptic disaster of fragmentation, exactly like that of the 6 states, to fester right under your own hands, this can hardly be praised as brilliant, far-sighted wisdom. If Your Majesty only craves the cowardly comfort of a peaceful reign during your own lifetime, yet secretly tolerates the wild growth of the sparks of rebellion, allowing apocalyptic disasters to lurk and fester, tell me, what truly brilliant sovereign could just sit and watch this without taking decisive action to completely crush it? After your passing in 100 years, leaving such a dangerously explosive mess to an elderly Empress Dowager and a vulnerable, fragile child emperor will inevitably plunge the entire world into bloody chaos and devastating misery. Such actions can absolutely never be praised as those of a merciful and benevolent sage king. Upon hearing this, Emperor Wen awoke as if from a deep dream and decisively adopted Jia Yi's brilliant, miraculous strategy. With thunder's speed, he transferred the original Prince of Huaiyang, Lu Wu, and boldly crowned him the new Prince of Liang. The territory of the newly forged Liang kingdom was immensely vast. Its borders stretched aggressively northward all the way to the majestic Mount Tai, and pushed westward deeply into Gaoyang, commanding absolute control over more than 40 massive, wildly prosperous, and heavily fortified cities. However, heaven is jealous of genius. Barely over a year later, the brilliantly erudite Jia Yi, who had agonized so deeply over the fate of the nation and its people, tragically died in profound melancholic despair. At the heartbreaking moment of his passing, this dazzling political superstar was a mere 33 years old. Subsequently, with the grand stroke of the imperial brush, the imperial court transferred the Prince of Qingyang, Lu Shi, powerfully transforming him into the new Prince of Huainan, tasked with guarding the territories south of the river. The incredibly brutal Xiongnu cavalry from the north invaded like a horde of ravenous wolves and ferocious tigers, wildly pillaging the vital, heavily guarded frontier fortress town of Didao of the Great Han Empire. During that intensely perilous period of suffering, the Xiongnu ruthlessly and repeatedly invaded the borders, becoming a massive, heart-piercing plague upon the empire. At that time, the fiercely upright and brilliant talent from Mingchuan, Chao Qiu, who served as the household provisioner for the crown prince, passionately submitted a memorial to the emperor discoursing on critical military affairs, boldly declaring, "The ancient and profound wisdom of the art of war states brilliantly, in this world, there are only supreme generals who are guaranteed victory in every battle, but there absolutely do not exist ordinary soldiers who are born with a guaranteed destiny of winning." Observing profoundly through the lens of this ironclad law of war, to fiercely and unyieldingly secure the smoke-filled, blood-soaked frontiers, and to establish world-shattering, majestic merit and glory for the great Han dynasty, the absolute lifeline relies entirely upon finding those 1 in a million, peerless and brilliant generals. This is absolutely a matter of supreme national importance, where your Majesty must keep your eyes wide open and select with the utmost, hair-splitting prudence. I have also heard that in the critical moment of leading troops to the battlefield and engaging the enemy in hand-to-hand combat, there are 3 most urgent and decisive factors for victory. The first is to occupy advantageous terrain and seize the initiative. The second is that the soldiers must be strictly trained, obeying commands and coordinating seamlessly. The third is that weapons and equipment must be sophisticated and sharp, ensuring no disadvantage in combat. The art of war states, infantry, chariots, cavalry, crossbows, long halberds, spears, short javelins, swords, and shields each have specific terrains where they are most effective. If they are not in their suitable terrain, then 10 soldiers may not even be able to withstand a single enemy. If the officers are not selected and trained, the soldiers are disobedient and unpracticed, their daily routines are lax, and their movements are disorganized. Then they will fail to reach advantageous positions in time, and fail to escape danger completely. While the front lines are attacking, the rear will crumble and flee. Their actions completely deviate from the signals of the gongs and drums. This is entirely the fault of failing to train and organize the troops, such that 100 of them cannot withstand 10 of the enemy. If weapons are not complete and sharp, it is the same as going into battle empty-handed. If armor is not strong and dense, it is the same as being naked and exposed to blades. If a crossbow cannot reach far distances, it is no different from using short-range weapons. If an archer cannot hit the target, it is the same as having no arrows at all. Even if it hits, if it cannot penetrate, it is the same as an arrow without a metal tip. These are the disasters caused by a general failing to inspect the weaponry. An army with such poor equipment cannot even withstand 1 enemy for every 5 of its own. Therefore, the art of war says, if equipment is not superior, it is the same as handing over your soldiers to the enemy. If the soldiers are unusable, it is the same as handing over their general to the enemy. If the general does not understand warfare, it is the same as handing over his sovereign to the enemy. If the sovereign does not choose his generals wisely, it is the same as handing over his country to the enemy. These 4 factors are the most essential lifelines of military affairs. I have also heard, large and small states differ in form, strong and weak powers differ in momentum, rugged and level terrains differ in their defensive preparations. Lowering oneself to serve a strong power is the strategy that small nations must adopt for survival. Uniting small states to attack a large one is the pattern of states that are comparable rivals. Using barbarians to attack barbarians is the strategic form that the Central Kingdom should adopt. Presently, the geographical environment and combat skills of the Xiongnu are vastly different from those of the Central Kingdom. In galloping up and down steep slopes and traversing through deep mountain streams, the horses of the Central Kingdom cannot compete with them. On narrow and sloping paths, Xiongnu riders can gallop and shoot with precision. This skill of mounted archery is something our Central Kingdom's cavalry cannot match. Even enduring wind and rain without exhaustion, or hunger and thirst without weariness, such extreme endurance is beyond our people. These are the superior skills of the Xiongnu. However, on flat plains and open ground, using light chariots and heavy shock cavalry will easily throw the Xiongnu masses into chaos. With our powerful crossbows and long halberds capable of reaching distant targets, the Xiongnu's short bows simply cannot hold their ground. With our sturdy armor and sharp blades, the mixing of long and short weapons, mobile crossbowmen moving back and forth, and units advancing in tight coordination, the Xiongnu troops will be unable to withstand such a disciplined formation. When our elite crossbowmen fire in unison, with countless arrows converging on the same target, the Xiongnu's crude leather shields and wooden barricades will fail to hold up and will be instantly pierced. If both sides dismount for ground combat, when swords and halberds clash at close range, whether in swift retreat or close-quarters fighting, the Xiongnu, accustomed only to riding, will find their legs insufficient and will be no match for our soldiers. These are all the superior skills of our great Han's Central Kingdom army. Looking at it this way, the Xiongnu possess only 3 superior skills, while our Central Kingdom boasts as many as 5. Your Majesty has mobilized a massive force of hundreds of thousands to suppress a mere tens of thousands of Xiongnu. By the calculation of numbers, this is the tactic of using 10 to strike 1. Even so, weapons are instruments of ill omen, and war is a perilous endeavor. Therefore, the transformation of greatness into insignificance and strength into weakness can happen in the mere blink of an eye. To contend for victory with the lives of men is a gamble. If you fall and cannot recover, your regret will be beyond remedy. The way of a sovereign is to act from a position of absolute safety and perfection. Presently, there are thousands from among the surrendered Hu, Itsu, and other tribes who have returned to our righteousness. Their diet and superior skills are identical to those of the Xiongnu. We can bestow upon them sturdy armor, padded silk clothing, powerful bows, and sharp arrows, and supplement them with the finest steeds from the frontier commanderies. Appoint brilliant generals who understand their customs and can harmonize their hearts, and lead them according to your Majesty's clear and solemn covenants. Should there be dangerous obstacles, use them to withstand the enemy. On flat ground and open roads, use light chariots and elite infantry to suppress them. Let the 2 forces complement each other inside and out, each using its superior skills, and finally add the weight of our superior numbers. This is the method of absolute safety and perfection. The emperor highly commended him, bestowed a letter upon Chao Qiu, and replied with great affection and favor. Chao Qiu submitted another memorial, saying, I have heard that when the Qin dynasty mobilized armies to attack the Hu in the north and the Yu in the south, it was not for the sake of defending the frontiers or saving the lives of the people. Rather, it was out of greed and violence, a desire to expand their vast territories. Thus, before any merit was established, the world fell into chaos. Moreover, if you mobilize an army without knowing the situation, you will be captured in battle, or your soldiers will die in heaps while stationed. The people of the Hu and Mo are by nature tolerant of cold, the people of Yang and Yu are by nature tolerant of heat. The garrison soldiers of Qin could not endure the climate. Those on guard died at the frontiers, and those transporting supplies collapsed on the roads. When the people of Qin saw themselves being mobilized, it was as if they were being sent to the marketplace for execution. Therefore, the government conscripted them as a punishment, calling it punitive garrison duty. First, they conscripted officials who had committed offenses, as well as sons-in-law and merchants. Later, they took those who had once been registered as tradesmen in the marketplace. Later, even those whose grandparents or parents had been registered as merchants were taken. Finally, they entered the neighborhoods and seized those living on the left side. The conscription was contrary to the will of the people, and those who went were filled with anger and resentment. They faced the danger of 10,000 deaths but received not even a mite's worth of reward. Even after dying heroically in the line of duty, their families received not even a single unit of tax exemption. Everyone under heaven clearly perceives that such a cruel disaster will inevitably befall them as well. When Qinsheng reached Day's village while on his way to frontier garrison duty, He merely raised his voice as the first to advocate revolt, and people from all over the world followed him like rushing water. This was the fatal consequence of the Qin dynasty's reliance on sheer coercion and violence to enforce its rule. The livelihoods of the Xiongnu people are not tied to any specific plot of land. Their nomadic nature makes it incredibly easy for them to harass and disrupt the borders. Moving constantly from place to place, their movements are unpredictable, appearing suddenly at one moment and vanishing the next. This is the way of life for the Xiongnu, yet it is also the reason why the people of the Central Kingdom are forced to abandon their fertile fields and flee their homes. Nowadays, the Xiongnu frequently graze their herds and hunt near the frontier fortresses. In reality, they are covertly monitoring the movements of our garrison troops. As soon as they detect that the guards are few in number, they strike and invade immediately. If your Majesty does not send aid, the people at the borders will fall into utter despair, and may even begin to harbor thoughts of surrendering to the enemy. Yet if you attempt to rescue them, sending a small force is insufficient. If you send a large force, by the time reinforcements from distant counties finally arrive, the Xiongnu will have already finished their plundering and vanished. If the troops are kept massed here without being disbanded, the military expenses become staggering. However, the moment they are dismissed, the Xiongnu will inevitably return and invade once more. If this cycle continues year after year, the Central Kingdom will be plunged into poverty and hardship, and the people will find no peace in their lives. It is fortunate that Your Majesty constantly worries about the security of the frontiers, dispatching generals and officials to mobilize troops for the construction of fortresses. This is indeed a most significant act of benevolent governance. However, the soldiers currently stationed at the frontier fortresses are conscripted from distant regions and rotated out after only 1 year. As a result, they never have the chance to understand the fighting styles and capabilities of the Xiongnu. Instead, it would be far better to recruit those willing to settle there permanently, allowing them to establish families and farm the land. This would enable them to defend against the enemy on a regular basis and facilitate the construction of towering walls and deep moats. At strategic choke points and essential routes along river crossings, planned townships should be established, each with a population of no less than 1,000 households. The state must first build houses and prepare farming tools before beginning the recruitment of settlers. For criminals willing to go, their offenses should be pardoned. For commoners, noble ranks should be bestowed, and their families exempted from taxes and labor service. The government must also provide seasonal clothing and food rations until they are capable of sustaining themselves. For people living at the frontier, if the rewards and benefits are not generous, it is impossible to expect them to remain settled long-term in such a perilous and arduous environment. If the Xiongnu sneak across the border to plunder, and someone among the people manages to recapture the stolen livestock or goods, the government will grant half of it to that individual and purchase the remaining half from them at the government's expense. When the people receive such practical benefits, the residents of every town and neighborhood will spontaneously aid one another, and will not shrink from death when rushing to confront the Xiongnu. This is not because they are particularly grateful for the emperor's virtue, but rather out of a desire to protect their own kinsmen and secure the rewards and property available to them. These settled warriors, compared to the frontier soldiers sent from the interior who are unfamiliar with the terrain and harbor deep-seated fear of the Xiongnu, will be 10,000 times more effective in battle. By taking advantage of Your Majesty's prosperous reign to relocate people and solidify the borders, you can relieve those in distant regions from the burden of long-range military garrison duty. The people at the borders will henceforth be able to protect one another as fathers and sons, free from the constant terror of being captured and enslaved by the enemy. The benefits of this policy will extend to future generations, and your reputation will be honored as that of a sage king. Compared to the oppressive acts of the Qin dynasty that only incited popular resentment, the difference in wisdom and grace is truly vast and profound. The emperor ultimately followed his advice and ordered the recruitment of commoners to be relocated and settled in the frontier regions. Chao Qiu spoke again. Your Majesty has wisely recruited people to move and settle along the frontier. This has significantly reduced the burden of long-term military stationing and diminished the costs of transporting supplies. It is indeed a magnificent act of imperial grace. If the local officials can truly live up to this great grace, uphold clear laws, provide care and relief to the elderly and weak among the migrants, treat the strong warriors well, and harmonize their hearts without exploitation or cruelty, then those who arrived first will feel secure and happy, no longer longing for their old homes. This will inspire other poor citizens to admire them and encourage each other to join the migration. I have heard that in ancient times, those who moved people first observed the balance of yin and yang, climate and environment, tasted the flavor of the springs, and only then planned the towns, built the walls, organized the neighborhoods, and partitioned the residential plots. First, they should build houses and prepare tools and household items for them there. When the people arrive, they will have places to live and tools to work with. This is why the people would feel at ease leaving their old homes and feel encouraged to move to the new townships. For them, physicians and shamans should be provided to treat illnesses and conduct sacrifices. Let men and women marry. Let the living and the dead be cared for by each other. Let their graves be together. Let trees be planted and livestock raised, and let their houses be complete and secure. This is why the people can find joy in their location and develop the intention to reside there permanently. I have also heard that in ancient times, the way to establish border counties for defense was to organize 5 households into a Wu squad, with a headman for each Wu. For every 10 headmen, there was a Li neighborhood, and in each Li, there was an acting officer Jiashi. Every 4 neighborhoods formed a Lian company, and in each Lian, there was an acting commander of 500 Jia Wu Bai. 10 companies formed the Yi township, and in each Yi, there was an acting warden Jia Ho. All these leaders should be selected from the town's talented and virtuous individuals who are protective, familiar with the terrain, and understand the hearts of the people. In times of peace, they practice archery with the people. In times of action, they teach the people how to confront the enemy. Therefore, if the squads and units are formed internally, military order will be established externally. Once the habit of obedience and training is formed, do not order them to relocate. Let them play together as children and work and serve together as adults. In night battles, knowing each other's voices is enough to enable mutual rescue. In day battles, seeing each other with their eyes is enough to ensure mutual recognition. And with hearts full of affection for one another, they are willing to die for each other. In this way, encouraged by generous rewards and deterred by severe punishments, they will advance to their deaths without ever turning back. If the relocated people are not strong and capable, they will merely waste clothes and grain and be of no use in battle. And even if they have strength and talent, without good officials to lead them, there will still be no success. Your Majesty has broken off the Heqing, peace marriage, policy with the Xiongnu. I privately suspect they will invade the south this winter. Once they are severely defeated, they will suffer a wound that lasts a lifetime. Those who wish to establish authority must start when the glue snaps, at the first frost or right moment. If they come and we cannot trap them, allowing them to depart in high spirits, it will not be easy to make them submit in the future. Chao Qiu was a man of stern integrity and sharp, rigorous character. Through his eloquence, he gained the favor of the crown prince, and those in the prince's household called him the Bag of Wisdom. In the 12th year of Emperor Wen's reign, the Guyu year, 168 BC. In the winter, in the 12th month, the Yellow River burst its banks at Xuanzhou, collapsing the Jin embankment to the east. Dong Commandery raised a massive number of troops and laborers to plug the breach. In the spring, in the 3rd month, the checkpoints were removed, and travel permits, chuan, were no longer required. Chao Qiu advised the emperor, saying, "When a sage king reigns and the people suffer from neither cold nor hunger, it is not because the king himself plows the fields to feed them or weaves the cloth to clothe them. It is because he has opened up the channels for wealth and resources to flourish." Therefore, although Emperor Yao faced 9 years of flooding and King Tang endured 7 years of drought, the nation saw no one dying of starvation in the fields or suffering from emaciation. This was because their reserves were abundant and preparations had been made well in advance. Now that the realm is unified, with land and people no less numerous than in the times of Tang and Yu, and moreover, without the natural disasters of long-running floods or droughts, why is it that our reserves still do not measure up? The reason is that the land still holds untapped potential, and the people still have surplus labor. The soil capable of producing grain has not been fully reclaimed, the resources of the mountains and marshes have not been fully extracted, and the wandering people who live without productive work have not yet fully returned to farming. Now, for those who are cold, clothes do not need to be light or warm luxuries. For those who are hungry, food does not need to be sweet or delicious delicacies. When hunger and cold afflict the body, people no longer care for integrity or shame. It is human nature to feel hungry if one does not eat twice a day, and to feel cold if one does not make new clothes throughout the year. When the stomach is hungry without food and the skin is cold without clothing, even a compassionate mother cannot keep her own child. How, then, can a ruler hope to retain his people? Wise rulers understand this. Therefore, they direct the people toward farming and sericulture, lighten taxes and levies, and broaden reserves to fill the granaries and prepare for floods or droughts. Thus, the people can truly be retained and secured. As for the people, they are those whom the ruler must shepherd and guide. The people's pursuit of profit is like water flowing downward, moving in all directions without hesitation. Now, pearls, jade, gold, and silver, none can be eaten when one is hungry, nor worn when one is cold. Yet the reason the masses value them is simply that the superiors use them. As objects, they are light, small, and easy to hide. Held in one's palm, they allow one to travel across the realm without the worry of hunger or cold. This allows officials to easily betray their lords and commoners to readily abandon their homes. It encourages thieves and robbers and provides fugitives with light assets for their escape. Grains and fabrics, on the other hand, spring from the earth, grow with the seasons, and are gathered through labor. They cannot be produced in a single day. With a weight of several pickles, an average person cannot lift them, so they do not tempt the wicked. Yet if one goes without them for a single day, hunger and cold arrive immediately. For this reason, a wise ruler values the 5 grains and despises gold and jade. Currently, in a typical farming family of 5, no fewer than 2 members must perform government labor service. The land they can cultivate does not exceed 100 mu, and the total harvest from these 100 mu is no more than 100 sure of grain. They plow in the spring, weed in the summer, harvest in the autumn, and store grain in the winter. They also chop firewood, repair government offices, and fulfill heavy labor services. In spring, they cannot escape the biting winds and dust. In summer, they cannot avoid the scorching heat. In autumn, they cannot shun the gloomy rains. And in winter, they cannot dodge the freezing cold. Throughout the 4 seasons, they do not have a single day of rest. Furthermore, They must attend to personal social obligations like seeing people off and welcoming guests, mourning the dead and visiting the sick, and taking on the burdens of raising orphans and nurturing the young within their families. Despite working so hard, they must still suffer from floods and droughts, urgent policies, and violent taxes. These levies are collected at unpredictable times, and government decrees issued in the morning are changed by the evening. Those with grain are forced to sell it at half price to get cash. Those without must take out loans with double interest. Consequently, tragedies occur where people sell their fields and homes, or even auction off their own children and grandchildren to repay their debts. Meanwhile, great merchants hoard goods for exorbitant profits, while lesser traders set up stalls to resell items. Controlling scarce commodities for high returns, they wander daily through urban markets, doubling their prices whenever the government or the people are in desperate need. Thus, their men do not plow or weed, and their women do not raise silkworms or weave. Yet they always wear beautifully patterned silks and feast on fine grains and meats. They suffer none of the hardships of the farmer, yet they enjoy the bountiful gains yielded by vast tracts of land. Leveraging their immense wealth, they fraternize with princes and nobles, wielding influence that surpasses that of local officials, using their financial power to vie for dominance. They travel leisurely across thousands of miles, their grand carriages forming an endless line. They ride in sturdy, comfortable wagons drawn by plump, spirited horses, wearing silk shoes and trailing gowns of fine white silk. This is precisely why merchants are able to annex the property of farmers, and why farmers are forced to desert their homes and become fugitives. The most urgent task today is nothing other than making the people dedicate themselves to agriculture. To encourage the people to farm, it is essential to elevate the value of grain. The way to elevate the value of grain lies in allowing the people to use it as a means for rewards or penalties. Now let the call go out to all the people to submit grain to the government. In exchange, they shall be granted noble ranks or have their criminal offenses pardoned. In this way, the wealthy gain their desired status, the farmers receive needed money, and the grain is circulated and stored. Those who are able to submit grain for noble ranks are surely those with surplus resources. By taking from those who have plenty to supply the state's needs, the taxes on the poor can be reduced. This is what is meant by taking from the surplus to supplement the deficient. When such an order is issued, the people truly benefit. Present laws mandate that any citizen owning a horse suitable for chariots or cavalry shall be exempted from military service for 3 persons. Chariots and cavalry are the foundation of the nation's military readiness. Thus, the law allowing for service exemptions in exchange for horses was established. The teachings of Shenong state, even with a stone wall 10 ren high, a boiling moat 100 paces wide, and 1,000,000 armored soldiers, if there is no grain, it cannot be defended. From this perspective, grain is the supreme asset of a ruler, and the fundamental priority of governance. Currently, if a person submits grain for a noble rank as high as Wu de Fu, they are exempted from the military service of only 1 person. This contribution is far inferior to the merit of providing a single horse, which exempts 3 people. Noble rank is a privilege held exclusively by the sovereign. It is granted simply by word of mouth and is inexhaustible. Grain, however, is what the people plant. It grows from the earth and is never failing. To attain high rank and to be pardoned for crimes are the deepest desires of all men. If we allowed the people of the world to submit grain at the borders to receive ranks or pardons, within no more than 3 years, the grain reserves at the frontier fortresses will surely be abundant. The emperor ultimately adopted his proposal, ordering the people to submit grain at the frontiers and bestowing noble ranks of various levels based on the quantity submitted. Chao Qiu submitted another memorial, saying, Your Majesty has graciously allowed people throughout the realm to submit grain to the frontier in exchange for noble ranks, which is truly a magnificent act of benevolence. I previously harbored a private concern that the provisions for the frontier troops might be insufficient, which led me to suggest a massive circulation and redistribution of the realm's grain. Now that the grain stored at the border is sufficient to sustain the troops for 5 years, an order can be issued to allow the people to submit grain to the inland commanderies and counties instead. If the commanderies and counties have enough to last for more than a year, timely amnesties can be granted to waive the collection of land taxes from the farmers. In this way, the Emperor's grace will be bestowed upon all the people. They will become more diligent in farming, and the nation will reach a state of great prosperity and happiness. The Emperor again followed his advice and issued an edict saying, "The way to guide the people lies in their dedication to the fundamental occupation of agriculture. I have personally led the people in farming for 10 years now, yet the amount of reclaimed wasteland has not increased. Whenever there is a single poor harvest, the people show signs of hunger in their faces. This indicates that those engaged in farming are still too few, and the officials have not been sufficiently diligent in promoting it. I have issued numerous edicts and annually encouraged the people to plant trees and crops, yet no great results have flourished. This is because the officials have been lax in executing my decrees and have failed to guide the people with clarity. Moreover, my farmers suffer greatly, yet the officials do not take notice or show concern. How can any success be achieved in the future? Let the farmers be granted a remission of half of this year's land taxes." In the 13th year of the reign of Emperor Taizong Xiaowen, the Jiaxu year, 167 BC. In the spring, in the 2nd month on the day of Jian, an edict was issued. I shall personally lead the realm in farming to provide grain for the sacrificial offerings, and the Empress shall personally tend to the mulberry trees to provide silk for the ritual garments. Let the proper ceremonies be prepared. Initially, during the Qin dynasty, there was a position called the secret invoker among the sacrificial officials. Whenever a disaster or an ominous sign occurred, they would immediately transfer the guilt onto their subordinates, or the common people through secret prayers. In the summer, an edict stated, "I have heard that according to the heavenly way, calamities arise from resentment, while blessings flourish through virtue. The faults of the various officials should rightfully be borne by my own person. Now the secret invokers transfer blame to my subjects, which only serves to highlight my own lack of virtue. I find this practice utterly unacceptable. Let it be abolished immediately." Chu Nui, the intendant of the granary in Qi, committed an offense and was sentenced to corporal punishment. He was arrested and detained in the imperial prison in Chang'an. His youngest daughter, Taiying, submitted a petition saying, "My father served as an official, and everyone in Qi praised his integrity and fairness. Now, he has broken the law and is sentenced to corporal punishment. I am deeply grieved that those put to death cannot be brought back to life, and limbs severed by corporal punishment cannot be reattached. Even if one later wishes to reform and start anew, there is no longer a path to do so. I am willing to be confiscated as a state slave girl to redeem my father's punishment, so that he may have the chance to start his life anew." The emperor was moved to pity and sorrow by her intent. In the 5th month, he issued an edict. The classic of poetry says, "The joyous and easygoing gentleman is the parent of the people." Nowadays, when people err, punishment is applied before education has been attempted. Some wish to change their ways and do good, but find no path to achieve it. I feel deep compassion for them. For corporal punishment involves severing limbs and carving skin, injuries that remain for the rest of one's life. How agonizing and lacking in virtue such punishments are! Can this truly be the intent of one who acts as the parent of the people? Let corporal punishment be abolished and replaced with other measures. And let prisoners, according to the severity of their crimes, be freed from their status after serving a certain number of years, provided they do not attempt to escape. Let the specific ordinances be formulated. Chancellor Zhang Tsang and Imperial Counselor Feng Jing petitioned to establish the law, saying, all those sentenced to head shaving, kun, shall instead serve as laborers building walls, qingdan, or grinding grain, chong. Those sentenced to tattooing, qing, shall instead have their heads shaved, wear iron collars, and serve as laborers building walls or grinding grain. Those sentenced to nose amputation, shall instead receive 300 strokes of the bamboo rod. Those sentenced to amputation of the left foot shall instead receive 500 strokes of the bamboo rod. Those sentenced to amputation of the right foot, those who commit murder but confess beforehand, officials guilty of bribery, perverting the law, or stealing state property they were assigned to guard, and those who commit flogging-level offenses after being sentenced, shall all be executed in the public marketplace. Prisoners already sentenced to labor as wall builders or grain grinders shall each have a set number of years to serve before being released. The imperial response stated, approved. At that time, the emperor himself practiced the philosophy of quietude and non-action, while the generals and ministers were all old meritorious officials from the founding era, possessing little sophistication but much simplicity. Taking warning from the evil policies that brought down the Qin, all discussions focused on leniency and kindness. People considered it a shame to speak of others' faults. As this influence spread throughout the realm, the custom of mutual accusation and exposure was transformed. Officials were secure in their positions, and the people found joy in their occupations. Reserves increased year by year, and the population gradually flourished. The social atmosphere was honest and generous, and the web of legal prohibitions was loose and wide. In cases of doubtful guilt, the benefit was given to the subject. Consequently, punishments were greatly reduced, to the point where only 400 cases were adjudicated in a year, and the atmosphere of laying aside the punishments, Xingqiu, prevailed. In June, the emperor issued an edict declaring, agriculture is the foundation of the world. No duty is more significant than this. Nowadays, farmers toil in the fields yet still face the burden of land taxes, making no distinction between those who work the land and those who do not. This reflects an incomplete approach to encouraging agriculture. Let the land taxes on all fields be completely abolished. In the 14th year of Emperor Xiaowen, the year of Ehi, 166 BC. In winter, the Xiongnu Lao's Heng Shanyu led 140,000 elite cavalry into Chaona and Xiaoguan, killing Sun Ong, the commandant of Beatty, and capturing a vast number of people, livestock, and property. They then reached Pingyang and dispatched surprise troops to burn down the Huizhong Palace. Their scouts even reached as far as the Gongquan Palace in Yong. The emperor appointed Zhou Xi and Zhang Wu as generals, mobilizing 1,000 chariots and 100,000 elite troops to station near Chaoan to guard against the Xiongnu invaders. He also appointed Lu Qing as general of Shangjuan, Wei Su as general of Beatty, and Zhou Zhao as general of Longxi, stationing them in these 3 frontier commanderies. The emperor personally inspected the troops, organized them, reaffirmed military orders, and bestowed rewards upon the officers and soldiers, desiring to personally lead the campaign against the Xiongnu. The ministers all offered counsel against it, but he would not listen. Only when the Empress Dowager insisted on restraining him did the emperor finally stop. Thus, he appointed Zhang Xiangru as Grand General, and Dong Qi and Luan Bu as generals, to jointly strike the Xiongnu. The Shanyu remained within the frontier passes for over a month, and then finally departed. The Han forces pursued them out of the passes but returned immediately, failing to inflict any significant casualties. The Emperor, passing the courtiers' quarters in his carriage, asked the chief of gentlemen, Feng Tang, "Sir, where is your home?" He replied, "My grandfather was from Zhao, and my father moved to Dai." The Emperor said, "When I lived in Dai, my superintendent of food Gao Chu often spoke to me of the brilliance of the Zhao general Li Qi and his battle at Julu. Now whenever I sit for a meal, my thoughts never fail to return to Julu." "Do you know of him, sir?" Feng Tang replied, "He was still not equal to generals like Lian Pe or Li Mu." The Emperor slapped his thigh and cried, "Alas! If only I had generals like Lian Pe and Li Mu! Why would I then worry about the Xiongnu?" Feng Tang said, "Your Majesty, even if you had Lian Pe and Li Mu, you would not be able to use them." The Emperor was enraged. He stood up and retreated into his inner chambers. After a long time, he summoned Tang and rebuked him. "Sir, why did you humiliate me in public? Was there no private place for us to speak?" Tang apologized. "I am a humble man and do not know what is forbidden to say." The Emperor, still preoccupied with the Xiongnu threat, finally asked Tang again, "Sir, how do you know I could not use Lian Pe and Li Mu?" Tang replied, "I have heard that when ancient kings dispatched generals, they would kneel to push the wheel of the chariot and say, 'Within the threshold I shall govern, beyond the threshold the general shall command.' Military honors and rewards were all decided in the field, only to be reported upon return. This was no empty saying. My grandfather said, when Li Mu was a general for Zhao guarding the borders, the taxes collected from the military markets were all used by him to feast his soldiers. Rewards were determined abroad and did not need review from the central court. Entrusted and held accountable only for success, Li Mu was able to exercise his full intelligence and ability. He selected 1,300 chariots, 13,000 expert archers on horseback, and 100,000 valiant warriors, thus driving the Shanyu north, breaking the Donghu, annihilating the Danlin, restraining the mighty Qin in the west, and holding off Han and Wei in the south. At that time, Zhao was on the verge of hegemony. Later, it happened that King Qian of Zhao ascended the throne. He listened to the slanders of Guokai, eventually executing Li Mu and replacing him with Yan Zhu. Consequently, the army was broken, the soldiers fled, and Zhao was captured and destroyed by Qin. Now I have heard that Wei Shan, the governor of Yunzhong, uses all the market taxes of the army to feast his troops and spends his private funds to slaughter an ox every 5 days for his guests and officers. Thus, the Xiongnu stay far away and do not approach the Yunzhong frontier. When the invaders once entered, Shan led his chariots and cavalry to strike them, killing many. The soldiers are all sons of commoners, coming from the fields to join the army. How could they understand the intricate military records and tallies? They fight all day, taking heads and prisoners to report their merits to the headquarters. If a single word does not match, the clerks apply the law to punish the leaders. The rewards are withheld, but the punishments are strictly enforced. In my humble opinion, Your Majesty's rewards are too light and your punishments too severe. Moreover, Wei Shan, the governor of Yunzhong, was found to have a discrepancy of only 6 heads in his report of merits. Your Majesty handed him over to the officials, stripped him of his rank, and sentenced him to hard labor. Judging from this, Your Majesty could not use Lian Pe and Li Mu even if you had them. The Emperor was pleased. That very day, he ordered Tang to take the imperial tally to pardon Wei Shan and restore him as governor of Yunzhong, while also appointing Tang as chariot and cavalry commandant. In the spring, an edict was issued to expand the sacrificial altars and increase the offerings of jade and silk, stating, "I hear that the officials in charge of sacrifices pray for blessings only for my own person and not for the common people. I am deeply ashamed of this. Given my lack of virtue, to exclusively enjoy such blessings while the people have no part in them only compounds my lack of merit. Let the officials show their respect, but let them not pray for anything for me." In this year, King Wen of Hejian, Lu Piqiang, passed away. Earlier, Chancellor Zhang Tseng believed that the Han dynasty had attained the water virtue in the cycle of the 5 elements. However, Gong Sunchen, a man from Lu, argued that the Han should correspond to the earth virtue, and as proof, he predicted that a yellow dragon would appear. Zhang Tsing considered this view to be incorrect and dismissed him. The 15th year of the reign of Emperor Xiaowen, the year of Bingzi, 165 BC. In the spring, a yellow dragon was sighted in Qingji. The emperor summoned Gong Sunchen and appointed him to the position of erudite Bashi. He was tasked with clarifying the theory of earth virtue alongside other scholars and drafting plans for reforming the calendar and official garment colors. Zhang Tsing felt discredited by these events and subsequently withdrew from public affairs. In the summer, in the 4th month, the emperor made his first imperial visit to Yong, where he performed sacrifices to the 5 sovereigns in the suburbs and granted a general amnesty. In the 9th month, the emperor issued an edict calling for the vassal kings, high ministers, and commandery governors to recommend men of virtue and integrity, those capable of speaking directly and criticizing sharply, so that he could personally examine them. Chao Qiu, then serving as household provisioner to the crown prince, achieved a top ranking in his responses and was promoted to the rank of grandee of the palace. Chao Qiu also submitted 30 memorials proposing the reduction of the vassal lord's power and the revision of laws and decrees. Although the emperor did not adopt all of his suggestions, he nevertheless marveled at his talent. That year, King Wen of Qi, Lu Zhe, and King Ai of Hejian, Lu Fu, both died without heirs, leading to the abolition of their respective kingdoms. Xian Yuanning, a man from Zhao, gained an audience with the emperor through his skill in watching ethers, claiming that a divine aura of 5 colors had appeared to the northeast of Chang'an. Consequently, the emperor ordered the construction of the Temple of the 5 Sovereigns on the north bank of the Wei River. The 16th year of the reign of Emperor Xiaowen, the year of Dinqiu, 164 BC. In the summer, in the 4th month, the emperor performed the suburban sacrifice to the supreme deity at the Temple of the 5 Sovereigns on the north bank of the Wei River. Because of this, Xian Yuanping was elevated to the rank of superior grandee and received rewards totaling 1,000 pieces of gold. He also ordered the erudites and other scholars to extract material from the 6 classics to compile royal regulations, and to plan for imperial tours and Fengshan sacrifices. Additionally, an altar to the 5 sovereigns was erected to the north of the Changmen Road. The emperor transferred the king of Huainan, Lu Shi, back to the post of king of Qingyang and partitioned the state of Qi into 6 separate kingdoms. On the day of Bingyin, the emperor installed 6 surviving sons of King Daohui of Qi as kings. Lu Jianglu, Marquis of Yangshu, was made king of Qi, Lu Ji, Marquis of Andu, king of Jibei, Lu Xian, Marquis of Wuqing, king of Sichuan, Lu Xiongxiu, Marquis of Baishe, king of Jiaodong, Lu An, Marquis of Pingchang, king of Jiaoxi, and Lu Piguang, Marquis of Le, king of Jinan. Additionally, 3 surviving sons of the harsh king of Huainan were installed, Lu An as king of Huainan, Lu Bo, Marquis of Anyang, as king of Hengshan, and Lu Xi, Marquis of Yangzhou, as king of Lujiang. In the autumn, in the 9th month, Xian Yuanping sent someone to the palace gate carrying a jade cup to present to the emperor. Xian Yuanping told the emperor. I noticed the ether of a precious jade approaching the palace gate. Shortly after, when they looked, there was indeed someone presenting a jade cup inscribed with the words, May the Lord of Men live long. Xian Yuanping further claimed, I have observed the sun standing at the zenith a second time today. After a brief moment, the sun appeared to move backward and stood at the zenith again. Consequently, the emperor began a new era, designating the 17th year as the first year of a new reign period, and ordered a nationwide celebration with feasting. Xian Yuanping said, The Zhou tripods were lost in the Sea River. Now that the Yellow River has breached its banks and connected to the sea, I see a golden aura rising from Fenyan to the northeast. I suspect the Zhou tripods are about to emerge. Since the omen has appeared, if we do not go to welcome them, they will not arrive. Therefore, the emperor dispatched an envoy to build a temple south of Fenyan, overlooking the river, intending to conduct sacrifices to call forth the Zhou tripods. The latter part of the reign of the great Emperor Xiaowen, Taizong, of the Han dynasty entered its first year of the new era, Houyuan, a period marked in the ancient calendar as the year of Wuyin, or 163 BC. In the winter, during the 10th month, a person submitted a memorial accusing the mystic Xian Yuanping, declaring that all his mysterious prophecies and auspicious omens were nothing but hollow fabrications and blatant frauds. The emperor was enraged and handed Xian Yuanping over to the judicial officials for trial. Once the truth was revealed, Xian Yuanping was executed, and his entire clan was exterminated. Following this bitter deception, the emperor grew weary and no longer showed enthusiasm for altering the calendar, changing the colors of official robes, or dealing with matters concerning ghosts and deities. As for the grand altars dedicated to the 5 sovereigns at Weiyang and Changmen, he simply assigned sacrificial officials to manage them and offer seasonal rites. He himself never visited them again. In the spring of the following year, during the 3rd month, Empress Zhang, the widow of Emperor Hui, passed away in solitude. The emperor issued an edict saying, In recent years the harvests have failed repeatedly, supplemented by the calamities of floods, droughts, and plagues. I am profoundly distressed by these events. I consider myself dull and lacking in wisdom, and I have yet to comprehend the root cause of these misfortunes. I wonder if there has been some flaw in my governance or some error in my personal conduct? Is it that the way of heaven has become discordant, the bounties of the earth have been missed, human affairs have lost their harmony, or the sacrifices to ghosts and deities have been neglected? What has brought us to this state? Is it perhaps that the sustenance for the officials has been neglected, or that useless endeavors have become too numerous? Why is it that the people's food supply is so meager and scarce? In measuring the fields, the land has not become scarcer. In counting the people, the population has not significantly increased. If we calculate land per capita, it should still be more abundant than in ancient times. Yet if the land is sufficient, why is the food supply so drastically inadequate? Where does the fault lie? Could it be that too many commoners are engaging in secondary trades, thereby harming agriculture? Or is it that too much grain is being wasted on brewing wine, or that the amount used to feed livestock has become excessive? The principles regarding matters large and small, I have yet to find the proper balance within them. Let the Chancellor, the Marquises, the high officials with salaries of 2,000 shur, and the erudites deliberate on this matter together. If there are any ways to assist the common people, express your thoughts and think long-term. Do not withhold anything. Time moved into the 2nd year of the new era under Emperor Xiaowen, Taizong, the year of Jimao, or 162 BC. In the summer, the emperor traveled to the Yuyang Palace in Yong. In the 6th month, the king of Dai, Liu Kan, passed away. The Xiongnu invaded the borders for successive years, killing and plundering a vast number of people and livestock. The regions of Yinzhong and Liaodong suffered the most, with over 10,000 people lost in each commandery. Distressed by this, the emperor dispatched an envoy to deliver a letter to the Xiongnu Shanyu. The Shanyu also sent an official called the Danghu to reply and express gratitude, leading to the restoration of the peace marriage Haqin relationship. In the 8th month, on the day of Wushu, Chancellor Zhang Tsang was dismissed from office. The emperor considered the empress's brother, Do Guangwa, to be virtuous and well-behaved, and intended to appoint him as chancellor. He said, "I fear the world will think I am favoring Guangwa out of private interest. After long consideration, I decided against it." Yet among the surviving ministers from the era of Emperor Gao, none seemed suitable for the role. Imperial Counselor Shuntu Jia of Liang had followed Emperor Gao since early times as a strong crossbowman who could draw a bow with his feet. He was enfeoffed as a Marquis of Guanyai. On the day of Zhenwu, the emperor appointed Jia as chancellor, and enfeoffed him as Marquis of Guan. Jia was a man of integrity and directness. He never accepted private visitors at his home. At that time, the grandee of the palace Deng Tong was the object of the emperor's great affection, receiving rewards totaling tens of millions. The emperor often feasted and drank at Tong's home, showing him unparalleled favor. Once when Jia entered the court, Tong sat by the emperor's side with a disrespectful and arrogant demeanor. When Jia finished reporting, he took the opportunity to say, "If your majesty favors a subject, you may grant him wealth and status. But as for the etiquette of the court, it must be kept solemn." The emperor said, "Sir, say no more, he is my private favorite." After court was adjourned, Jia sat in his office at the chancellor's manor. Jia issued a summons calling Tong to the chancellor's office, warning that if he failed to appear, he would be executed. Tong was terrified and rushed into the palace to appeal to the emperor. The emperor said, "Just go. I will send someone to summon you back shortly." Tong arrived at the chancellor's manor, removed his cap, went barefoot, and kowtowed to apologize to Jia. Jia sat composedly, showing him no courtesy in return. He rebuked him, saying, "The court belongs to Emperor Gao. You are but a minor official, yet you behaved flippantly in the hall. This is great irreverence, and you deserve death. Executioner! Behead him now!" Tong kowtowed frantically until his forehead bled, yet Jia would not relent. The emperor, judging that the chancellor had punished Tong enough, sent an envoy with a tally to recall him, and told the chancellor, "He is but my jester. Please release him." When Tong returned, he wept to the emperor, saying, "The chancellor nearly killed me." In the 3rd year of the latter part of the reign of Emperor Xiaowen, Taizong, of Han, the Gingqian year, 161 BC. In the spring, in the 2nd month, His Majesty made an imperial visit to the region of Dai. In this year, the Lao's Hang Shanyu of the Xiongnu died, and his son, Junqin Shanyu, succeeded him. In the 4th year of the latter part of Emperor Xiaowen's reign, the Xinci year, 160 BC. In the summer, in the 4th month, on the last day of the month, Bingyin, a solar eclipse occurred. In the 5th month, a general amnesty was granted throughout the realm. His Majesty visited the region of Yong. In the 5th year of the latter part of Emperor Xiaowen's reign, the Rinwu year, 159 BC. In the spring, in the 1st month, His Majesty visited Longxi. In the 3rd month, he visited Yong, and in the autumn, in the 7th month, he visited Dai. In the 6th year of the latter part of Emperor Xiaowen's reign, the Gewei year, 158 BC. In the winter, 30,000 Xiongnu cavalry invaded Shangjiwen, and another 30,000 invaded Yunzhong. The number of people killed and looted was vast, and the beacon fires signaled the emergency all the way to Gongquan and Chang'an. Ling Mian, the grandee of the palace, was appointed general of chariots and cavalry and stationed at Feihu. The former chancellor of Chu, Sui, was appointed general and stationed at Goju. General Zhang Wu was stationed at Beidi. Zhou Jiafu, the governor of Henai, was appointed general and stationed at Shiliu. The minister of the imperial clan, Lu Li, was appointed general and stationed at Bahang, and Su Li, the Marquis of Zhuzi, was appointed general and stationed at Jimin, to prepare against the Xiongnu. His Majesty personally went to inspect the troops. When he reached the camps at Bahang and Jimin, he rode straight in, and the generals and their subordinates rode back and forth to welcome and escort him. Shortly after, he went to the Shiliu camp. The officers and soldiers there were all clad in armor, their weapons were sharpened, and their bows and crossbows were fully drawn. When the emperor's vanguard arrived, they were not allowed to enter. The vanguard cried, "His Majesty is about to arrive!" The military commandant at the gate said, "The general's order states, in the army, we follow the general's orders, not the emperor's decrees." Not long after, the emperor arrived, but he too was denied entry. Thereupon, the emperor dispatched an envoy carrying an imperial tally to issue a decree to the general. "I wish to enter the camp to inspect the troops." Zhou Jiafu then passed down the order. "Open the camp gates." The soldiers at the gate cautioned the imperial retinue. "The general's regulation states, no galloping or fast riding is allowed within the camp." Accordingly, the Son of Heaven pulled on the reins and proceeded at a slow pace. When he reached the camp, General Yafu, holding his weapon, made a bow and said, "A soldier in armor does not kneel. Please permit me to greet you with a military salute." The Son of Heaven was deeply moved, and changing his expression, he leaned forward against the bar of his carriage to show respect. He sent an attendant to say, "The Emperor respectfully inspects and commands the general." After finishing the ceremony, he departed. Once they had left the military gates, all the officials were astonished. The Emperor said, "Alas, this is a true general!" The previous camps at Bahang and Jimin were like child's play. Their generals could certainly be surprised and captured by an enemy. As for Zhou Jiafu, who could possibly infringe upon him? He continued to praise him for a long time. After more than a month, the Han main forces reached the border. The Xiongnu also distanced themselves from the passes, and the Han troops were subsequently demobilized. The emperor then appointed Zhou Jiafu as commandant, Shongwei. In the summer, in the 4th month, there was a severe drought followed by a locust plague. He ordered the vassal lords not to pay tribute. He opened the mountains and marshes to the public and reduced imperial garments and household expenses. He reduced the number of court attendants and officials, opened the granaries to provide relief to the people, and allowed citizens to sell their noble ranks for food. In the 7th year of the latter part of the reign of Emperor Xiaowen, Taizong, of Han, a year designated as Jiashan in the sexagenary cycle, or 157 BC. In the summer, on the Yihai day of the 6th month, the emperor passed away in the magnificent Weiyang Palace. His testamentary edict stated, "I have heard that among all things born under heaven, there is none that does not eventually perish. Death is a principle of heaven and earth, and a natural state of things. Why should it be cause for excessive grief? In today's world, everyone cherishes life and loathes death. They ruin their livelihoods through lavish burials and harm their health with prolonged mourning. I strongly disapprove of this. Moreover, I lack virtue and have not been of great assistance to the common people during my reign. Now that I am passing away, to make the people wear heavy mourning garments and engage in long periods of wailing, exposing them to the cycles of bitter cold and scorching heat, would bring sorrow to fathers and sons, injure the spirits of the elderly, diminish their food and drink, and sever the sacrifices to ghosts and gods. This would only compound my lack of virtue. How could I explain this to the world? I have been privileged to preserve the ancestral temples and, with my humble self, have been placed above the kings of the world for more than 20 years. Relying on the grace of heaven and the fortune of the state, there has been peace within our borders, and no military conflicts have arisen. I am not quick-witted and have always feared that my erroneous actions might bring shame upon the lasting virtue of the former emperors. Meditating on the length of my years in office, I have dreaded failing to bring my mission to a successful conclusion. Now that I am fortunately able to end my natural life and return to be honored within the temple of Emperor Gao, what cause for sorrow can there be? Let it be ordered to the officials and people of the realm, once this edict arrives, they shall engage in public mourning for only 3 days and then discard their mourning garments. Do not forbid the taking of wives, the marrying off of daughters, the performance of sacrifices, or the consumption of wine and meat. Even those whose duties require them to wear mourning dress and participate in the funeral shall not go barefoot. The hempen mourning bands shall not exceed 3 inches in width. Do not drape the chariots or weapons in funeral cloths. Do not conscript the people to wail and mourn within the palace halls. Those within the halls required to mourn shall do so only in the morning and evening, wailing 15 times at each session, and then cease when the rite is over. Outside of the designated morning and evening sessions, it is strictly forbidden for anyone to engage in unauthorized wailing or mourning. Once the coffin has been lowered, those in Dagong mourning shall wear it for 15 days, those in Shaogong for 14 days, and those in Xian for 7 days before removing them. All other matters not specified in this edict shall be handled by analogy according to these same principles. Proclaim this to the whole realm, so that everyone may clearly understand my will. The mountains and rivers surrounding Beiling shall remain as they are. There shall be no alterations or modifications made to them. Dismiss and return to their homes all the concubines from the rank of lady, Furin, down to the lesser maid, Shaoshi. On the day of Asi, he was buried in Beiling. During the 23 years of his reign, there were no additions or expansions to the palaces, gardens, carriages, horses, or daily garments and utensils. Whenever a regulation proved inconvenient for the people, he would immediately relax or abolish it for their benefit. He once contemplated building a high terrace and summoned craftsmen to estimate the cost, which came to 100 pieces of gold. The emperor said, 100 gold pieces is the equivalent of the total assets of 10 middle-income households. I reside in the palaces inherited from the former emperors and often fear I may disgrace them. Why should I build a new terrace? He personally wore only garments made of rough, dark silk. His favorite, Lady Xin, wore dresses that were not long enough to trail on the ground. The curtains and hangings were devoid of fine embroidery. In doing so, he displayed sincerity and simplicity, setting an example for the entire world. In constructing Beiling, only earthenware was used, no gold, silver, bronze, or tin was permitted for decoration. Utilizing the natural mountain, no additional burial mound was raised. When the king of Wu feigned illness to avoid attending court, the emperor bestowed upon him a low stool and a staff. Though the advice of ministers such as Yuan An was often blunt and stinging, the emperor consistently showed tolerance and adopted their suggestions. When the general Zhang Wu and others accepted bribes and were discovered, the emperor instead gave them even more rewards to make them feel ashamed in their hearts. He dedicated himself exclusively to transforming the people through virtue. As a result, there was peace within the 4 seas, every family was well off, and every individual had enough. Few in later generations could match such achievements. On the day of Dingwei, the crown prince ascended the imperial throne. He honored the Empress Dowager of the Bo clan as Grand Empress Dowager, and the Empress of the Dou clan as Empress Dowager. In the 9th month, a comet appeared in the western sky. In this year, King Wu Zhu of Changsha passed away. Having no son, his kingdom was abolished. Initially, Emperor Gaozu held King Wen, Rui, in high regard and issued a decree to the censors. The king of Changsha is loyal. Let this be recorded in the official statutes. During the time of Emperor Hui and Empress Lu, 2 of Rui's secondary sons were infeft as marquises. The kingdom passed through several generations before the line finally ended. The Annals of Emperor Jing Part 1. In the first year of the reign of Emperor Jing of Han, the year of Eo in the sexagenary cycle, or 156 BC. In winter, during the 10th month, Chancellor Shintujia and others submitted a memorial. No achievement is greater than that of the founding Emperor Gao, and no virtue is more magnificent than that of the filial Emperor Wen. The temple of Emperor Gao should rightfully be designated as the temple of the great ancestor, Taizu, for all future sovereigns. The temple of the filial Emperor Wen should be designated as the temple of the grand lineage, Taizong, for all sovereigns. The Son of Heaven should perform sacrifices at the temples of the great ancestor and grand lineage for generations, and the various marquises of the commanderies and kingdoms should each establish a Taizong temple for Emperor Wen. The imperial decree stated, approved. In the summer, on the Imao day of the 4th month, a general amnesty was granted throughout the realm. The imperial counselor Tao Qing was dispatched to the region of Dai to negotiate a peace marriage with the Xiongnu. In the 5th month, the collection of half the land tax was resumed, setting the rate at 1/30. Initially, although Emperor Wen abolished corporal punishment, it carried the reputation of being a lighter penalty, while in practice it still resulted in death. For instance, those whose right feet were to be amputated were instead effectively sentenced to death. Amputating the left foot was commuted to 500 strokes, and slitting the nose to 300. Most of those who received these punishments perished. That year, an edict was issued saying, inflicting excessive flogging is no different from a capital crime. Even if one fortunately survives, he is left so broken that he can no longer live as a whole human being. Let it be enacted in law, 500 strokes shall be reduced to 300, and 300 shall be reduced to 200. The emperor appointed Zhou Ren as minister of the household, Zhang Mo as minister of justice, Lu Li, the son of the prince of Chu, as minister of the imperial clan, and Chao Qiu as inner clerk of the left. Zhou Ren initially served as an attendant to the crown prince, and gained favor through his integrity and prudence. Zhang Lo also served the emperor in the crown prince's palace. Although he studied the legalist doctrine of rewards and punishments, he was by nature a kind and elderly man. For this reason, the emperor held him in high esteem and appointed him as one of the 9 ministers. As an official, Zhang Lo never spoke of prosecuting others, instead handling his duties with the sincere attitude of a kind elder. His subordinates, regarding him as a kind elder, did not dare to deceive him to any great extent. In the 2nd year of Emperor Jing's reign, the year of Bingxiu, or 155 BC. In winter, in the 12th month, a comet appeared in the southwest. An order was issued that men across the realm should begin their official registration for service at the age of 20. In the spring, in the 3rd month on the day of Jiayin, the emperor installed the imperial prince Lu De as king of Hejian, Lu Yi as king of Linjiang, and Lu Yu as king of Huaiyang. Additionally, Lu Fei was made king of Runan, Lu Pengzhu king of Guangchuan, and Lu Fei king of Changsha. In the summer, in the 4th month on the day of Renwu, the Grand Empress Dowager of the Bo clan passed away. In the 6th month, the Chancellor Shen Tujia passed away. At that time, the inner clerk Chao Qiu frequently requested private audiences to discuss state affairs, and his advice was always heeded. His favor surpassed that of the 9 ministers, and many laws and decrees were revised or established under his influence. Chancellor Jia felt belittled because his advice was ignored, and he developed a deep resentment toward Chao Qiu. As inner clerk, Chao Qiu found it inconvenient to exit to the east, so he instead broke through a wall to create a gate to the south. The place where he exited to the south was the outer wall of the temple of the Grand Sovereign, Emperor Gao's father. When Jia heard that Qiu had broken through the wall of the ancestral temple, he prepared a memorial requesting Qiu's execution. An acquaintance informed Qiu, who became terrified. He entered the palace at night for an audience, and surrendered himself to the emperor. When court convened, Jia requested the execution of inner clerk Qiu. The emperor said, "What Qiu broke through was not the actual temple wall, but an outer perimeter wall, where supernumerary officials reside. Furthermore, I ordered him to do it. Qiu is guiltless." Chancellor Jia apologized. After court adjourned, Jia said to his chief secretary, "I regret not beheading Qiu first before reporting it. I have been betrayed and outmaneuvered by him." Upon returning home, he coughed up blood and died. Qiu became even more influential and honored because of this. In autumn, a peace marriage was concluded with the Xiongnu. In the 8th month, on the day of Dingwei, the imperial counselor Tao Qing, Marquis of Kaifeng, was appointed chancellor. On the day of Dingxi, inner clerk Chao Qiu was appointed imperial counselor. A comet appeared in the northeast. In autumn, it hailed in Hengshan. The large ones were 5 inches in size, and the hail lay 2 feet deep. Mars was in retrograde, hovering near the pole star, while the moon appeared within the pole star region. Jupiter was also in retrograde within the heavenly court constellation. King Xiao of Liang, Lu Wu, was the youngest son of Empress Dowager Dou and thus enjoyed immense favor. He ruled over 40 cities situated in the most fertile and abundant lands in the empire. The rewards bestowed upon him were beyond description. His treasuries held nearly 1 billion coins, and his collection of pearls, jade, and precious artifacts surpassed even those in the capital. He constructed the East Garden, spanning over 300 li, expanded the walls of Suiyang to 70 li, and built lavish palaces with elevated walkways extending over 30 li from the palace to Pingtai. He recruited remarkable talents from across the realm, such as Mei Cheng and Yan Ji of Wu, Yang Xing, Gong Sungui, and Zhou Yan of Qi, and Sima Xiangru of Shu, all of whom became his loyal companions. Whenever he arrived for an imperial audience, the emperor would send an envoy with a tally to welcome the king at the pass, using the imperial chariot drawn by 4 horses. Once he arrived, his favor was beyond comparison. He shared the royal sedan when entering the palace and the same chariot when leaving, often hunting together in the Shangling Park. He subsequently submitted a memorial requesting permission to stay, which led to a residency of nearly half a year. The king's attendants, gentlemen, and ushers were registered on the imperial gate lists to lead people in and out of the emperor's halls, no different from the Han Palace eunuchs.
启玄义吞贪，尽柔诏燕茂，凡15年。太宗孝文皇帝下乾11年，壬申，公元前169年冬11月，上行幸代。春正月，自代还。夏6月，梁怀王一薨，无子。贾谊复上书曰：陛下极不定制，如今之事不过一传再传，诸侯有且人自而不治，豪直而大强，汉法不得行矣。陛下所以为藩汉及皇太子之所事者，为淮阳、代2国耳。代北边匈奴，与强敌为邻，能自完则足矣。而淮阳之比大诸侯，仅如黑子之啄面，士足以尔大国，而不足以有所禁欲。方今志在陛下，治国而令子士足以为耳，岂可谓功哉？臣之余计，愿举淮南地以易淮阳，而为梁王立后，割淮阳北边2、3列城与东郡以易梁。不可者，可徙代王而斗睢阳。梁起于新期而北诸之河，淮阳包陈而南黔之江，则大诸侯之有一心者，破胆而不敢谋。梁足以汉齐、赵，淮阳足以晋吴、楚。陛下高枕，终无山东之忧矣，此2世之利也。当今恬然，世欲诸侯之皆少，数岁之后，陛下且见之矣。夫秦日夜苦心劳力，以除6国之祸。今陛下立治天下，以止如意，高拱以成6国之祸，难以言治，苟身无事，处乱速助，熟事而不定，万年之后，传之老母，弱子，将使不宁，不可为人。帝于是从义计，徙淮阳王武为梁王，北界泰山，西至高阳，得大县40余城。后遂于贾谊一死，40年33矣。徙城阳王喜为淮南王。匈奴寇敌到，时匈奴朔为边患。太子嘉令颍川晁错上言兵事曰：兵法曰，有必胜之将，无必胜之民，由此观之，安边境，立功名，在于良将，不可不责也。臣又闻用兵临战，何任之急者？3曰得地形，2曰足服喜，3曰器用力。兵法、步兵、车骑、弓弩、长戟、矛禅、剑损之地，各有所宜，不得其宜者，或时不当一。事不选练，足不服喜，起居不惊，动静不急，趋利伏急，避难不避。前继后解，与筋骨之指相失，此不习乐足之过也，百不当时。兵不完利，与空手同；甲不坚密，与坦棣同；弩不可以极远，与短兵同；射不能中，与无矢同；中不能入，与无足同。此将不省兵之祸也，五不当一。故兵法曰：器械不利，以其足与敌也；足不可用，以其将与敌也；将不知兵，以其主与敌也；军不择将，以其国与敌也。四者，兵之至要也。臣又闻小大易行，强弱易势，险易易备。夫卑身以事强，小国之行也；和小以攻大，敌国之行也；以蛮夷攻蛮夷，中国之行也。今匈奴地形，既异与中国异，上下山坂，出入西涧，中国之马服于也；险道轻仄，且驰且射，中国之骑服于也；风雨霸劳，饥渴不困，中国之人服于也。此匈奴之长计也。若服平原、异地、轻车、突骑，则匈奴之众易挠乱也；劲弩、长戟、射书、极远，则匈奴之弓弗能革也；坚甲、利刃、长短相杂，由弩往来，15俱前，则匈奴之兵弗能当也；才官邹发，使道同的，则匈奴之革四，木剑弗能支也；下马地斗，剑戟相接，去就相搏，则匈奴之卒弗能给也。此中国之长计也。以此观之，匈奴之长计3，中国之长计5。陛下又行数十万之众，以诛数万之匈奴，众寡之计，以一击10之数也。虽然，兵、凶器、战、威势也。故以大为小，以强为弱，在俯仰之间耳。夫以人之死争胜，跌而不振，则悔之无及也。帝王之道，出于万全。今降胡、一渠、蛮夷之属来归义者，其众数千，饮食、长计与匈奴同。可赐之坚甲、蓄衣、进攻、历史，亦以边郡之良骑，令民将能知其习俗，合及其心者，以陛下之名曰将之。即有险阻，以此当之；平地通道，则以轻车、才官治之。两军相为表里，各用其长计，横加之以众，此万全之术也。帝加之，赐错书，宠达焉。错又上言曰：臣闻秦起兵而攻胡、越者，非以为边地而救民死也，贪利而欲广大也，故攻未利而天下乱。且夫起兵而不知其事，战则为人擒，屯则卒饥死。夫胡、何之人，其性耐寒；阳、越之人，其性耐 说：秦之庶族不耐其水土，庶者死于边，疏者愤于道。秦民践行，如往弃市，因以折发之，名曰折数。先发力有折及赘婿，假人；后以常有世己者，又后以大父母，父母常有世己者，后入屡取其所。发之不顺，行者愤怨，有万死之害而亡诸两之报，死事之后不得一算之父，天下明之或列及己也。陈胜行术，至于大则，为天下先倡，天下从之如流水者，秦以危节而行之之必也。胡人衣食之业，不著于地，其事亦以扰乱边境，往来转徙，时至时去。此胡人之生业，而中国之所以离南亩也。今胡人数转牧，行列于塞下，以后备塞之族，族少则入。陛下不救，则边民绝望而有降敌之心；救之，少发则不足，多发远献才智，则胡又已去。拒而不罢，为费甚大；罢之，则胡复入。如此连年，则中国贫苦而民不安矣。陛下幸忧边境，遣将吏发卒以治塞，甚大惠也。然今远方之族守塞，一岁而更，不知胡人之能。不如选长居者家室田作，且以备之，以便为之高城深堑，要害之处，通川之道，调力诚意，无下千家。先为是。5. 据田契，乃牧民免罪，败爵，复其家，于冬夏衣丙时，能自给而止。塞下之民，陆力不厚，不可使久居危难之地。胡人入区而能止其所趋者，以其半余之，县官为赎。其民如是，则义理相救助，复胡不必死。非以德上也，欲全亲戚而利其财也。此与东方之庶族不习地势而心为胡者，功相万也。以陛下之时，喜民实边，使远方无屯戍之事；塞下之民，父子相保，无系鲁之患，历时后世，名称盛名。其与秦之行怨民，相去远矣。上从其言，牧民喜色下。错复言，陛下幸牧民喜以食色下，使屯戍之事一省，书将之费一寡，甚大惠也。下历城能称后会，奉明法，存续所喜之老弱，善育其壮士，合集其心而勿轻克，使先智者安乐而不思故乡，则贫民相慕而劝亡矣。臣闻古之喜民者，相其阴阳之和，尝其水泉之味，然后营邑，立城，治理，割宅，先为注世家，治器物焉。民志有所居，作有所用，此民所以轻去故乡而劝之心意也。为治医，巫以救；疾病以修祭祀，男女有婚，生死相续，坟墓相从，种树畜长，事无完安。此所以使民悦其处而有长居之心也。臣又闻古之治边县以备敌也，使5家为伍，伍有长，10长1里，里有甲士，4里1连，连有甲500，10连1邑，亦有甲后。皆则其邑之贤才有户，习地形，知民心者。居则习民于设法，出则教民于应敌。故卒5城于内，则军政定于外。伏袭已成，勿令迁徙；幼则同游，长则共事。夜战声相知，则足以相救；昼战暮相见，则足以相识；欢爱之心，足以相死。如此而劝以厚赏，委以重罚，则前死不还种矣。所喜之民，非壮有才者，但废衣粮，不可用也；虽有财力，不得良力，犹王公也。陛下绝匈奴，不与和亲，臣妾亦其东来难也。依大志，则终身创矣。欲立威者，始于折交，来而不能困，使得弃去，后为易服也。错为人翘之克身，以其变德姓太子，太子家号曰智囊。太宗孝文皇帝下12年癸酉，公元前168年冬12月，河决酸枣，东溃金堤，东郡大兴足色之。春3月，除官，无用传。朝作言于上曰：圣王在上而民不动机者，非能耕而食之，知而医之也，未开其资财之道也。故尧有9年之水，汤有7年之旱，而国王捐给者，以蓄积多而被先据也。今海内为一，土地人民之众不减汤，与加以无天灾数年之水旱，而蓄积未及者，何也？地有一利，民有余力，生谷之土未尽垦，山泽之利未尽出，游食之民未尽归农也。夫寒之于衣，不待清暖；饥之于食，不待甘止；饥寒至身，不顾廉耻。人情一日不在食则饥，终岁不至衣则寒。夫妇饥不得食，夫寒不得衣，虽慈母不能保其子，君安能以有其民哉？明主知其然也。故务民于农桑，薄赋敛，广蓄积，以食仓廪， 被水旱，故民可得而有也。民者，在上所以牧之，民之趋利，如水走下，四方无泽也。夫珠、玉、金、银、鸡不可食，寒不可衣，然而重贵之者，以上用之故也。其为物轻微易藏，在于把握，可以周海内而无饥寒之患。此令臣轻备其主，而民易去其乡，盗贼有所劝，亡逃者得轻资也。粟、米、布、帛生于地，长于时，聚于利，非可一日成也。数十之众，中人福盛，不为奸邪所利，一日福德而饥寒至。是故名君贵五谷而见金玉。今农夫五口之家，其服役者不下2人，其能耕者不过100亩，100亩之收不过100石。春耕，夏耘，秋获，冬藏，伐新桥，置官府，给昼役。春不得避风尘，夏不得避暑热，秋不得避阴雨，冬不得避寒冻。4时之间王日休息，又私自送往迎来，吊死问疾，养孤长幼在其中。勤苦如此，上复被水旱之灾，急政暴富，赋敛不实，朝令而暮改。有者半价而卖，无者取备趁之息，于是有卖田宅，育子孙以长泽者矣。而商贾大者积贮备息，小者作猎贩卖，操其机引，日游都市，承上治。即所卖必备，故其男不耕耘，女不蚕织，衣必文采，食必良肉，无农夫之苦，有千帛之德。因其富厚，交通王侯，立国立世，以利相倾，千里游遨，官改相望，城监、侧肥、吕司、夜稿。此商人所以兼并农人，农人所以流亡者也。方今之物，莫若使民务农而已矣。欲民务农，在于贵粟；贵粟之道，在于使民以粟为赏罚。今目天下入粟县官，得以败爵，得以除罪。如此，富人有爵，农民有钱，粟有所谢。夫能入粟以受爵，皆有余者也。取有余以供上用，则贫民之富可损。所谓损有余，补不足，令出而民利者也。今令民有车骑马1匹者，富足3人；车骑者，天下5倍也，故为富足。神农之教曰：有时成10仞，汤匙100步，带甲100万，而无粟，弗能守也，以是观之。粟者，王者大用，政之本物。令民入粟授，爵至5大夫以上，乃复1人耳。此其与骑马之功相去远矣。爵者，上之所善，出于口而无穷；粟者，民之所重，生于地而不乏。夫得高爵于免罪，人之所甚欲也。使天下人入粟于边以受爵免罪，不过3岁，塞下之粟必多矣。帝从之，令民入粟边，败爵各以多少级数为差。错复奏言：陛下幸使天下入粟塞下以败爵，甚大惠也。切恐色足之时不足用，大谢天下粟。边时足以至5岁，可令入粟郡县矣。郡县足至1岁以上，可实设，勿收农民租。如此，得则家于万民，民欲勤农，大富乐矣。上复从其言，诏曰：盗民之路，在于务本。朕亲率天下农10年余今，而也不加辟，遂一不登，民有饥色，是从事焉上寡而利为家务。无诏书属下，遂劝民种树而功未兴，是立奉无诏不勤而劝民不明也。且无农民甚苦而利莫之省，将何以功焉？其次，农民今年租税之半。太宗孝文皇帝下13年甲戌，公元前167年春2月甲寅赵日，朕亲率天下农耕以供资成，皇后亲丧以供祭服，齐具礼仪。初，秦时诸官有必注，即有灾祥，则宜过于下。下诏曰：盖闻天道，或自愿起而符咒得兴，百官之非，宜由朕公。今必注之官宜过于下，以张无之不得，朕甚服取。其除之。其太仓令淳于意有罪，当行，诏谕代系长安。其少女提迎上书曰：妾妇为例，其中皆称其廉平，今作法当行。妾伤夫死者不可复生，行者不可复属，虽后欲改过自新，其道无咒也。妾愿没入为官婢，以赎父行罪，使得自新。天子连卑其意。5月，诏曰：是曰，凯替君子，民之父母，今人有过，教未失而行以加焉，或欲改行为善而道无咒制，朕甚怜之。夫行志断肢体，克肌肤，终身不息，何其行之痛而不得也？岂为民父母之义哉？其除肉刑，有以易之，即令罪人各以轻重，不计逃，有年而免。据为令。丞相张苍、御史大夫冯敬奏请定律曰： 诸当坤者为成旦，冲；当勤者坤前为成旦，冲；当义者吃300，当斩左指者吃500，当斩右指及杀人，先自告吉利作受囚，王法首先观财物而即道之，以论而复有吃罪，皆弃事。罪人欲以爵为成旦，冲者各有岁数矣。年，至曰可。是时，上计公修玄墨，而将相皆就功臣，少闻多治。惩恶亡秦之政，论义务，在宽厚，耻言人之过失，化行天下，告节之俗义。立安其官，民悦其业，蓄积岁增，户口尽息。风流笃厚，晋往疏阔，罪夷者与民，是以刑罚大省，至于断狱400，有刑错之风焉。6月，诏曰：农，天下之本，物莫大焉。今秦身从事而有租税之赋，是为本末者无以易也，其余劝农之道未备。且除田之租税。太宗孝文皇帝下14年乙亥，公元前166年冬，匈奴老上单于14万骑入朝纳，萧关，杀北地都尉养，鲁人民畜产甚多，遂至彭阳，使其兵入烧回中宫，后继智雍甘泉。帝以中尉周摄、郎中令张武为将军，发车千乘，其卒10万军长安旁，以备胡寇。而拜昌侯卢清为上郡将军，宁侯魏肃为北地将军，龙绿侯周造为陇西将军，屯3郡。上亲劳军，勒兵，申教令，赐立足，自欲征匈奴。群臣见不听，皇太后故要，上乃止。于是以东阳侯张相如为大将军，成侯董赤、内史栾布皆为将军，击匈奴。单于留塞内越余，乃去。汉烛出塞即还，不能有所杀。上辇过狼蜀，问狼蜀长冯唐曰：父家安在？对曰：陈大夫赵人，父喜代。上曰：吾居代时，吾上4间高驱数为我言赵将李琦之贤，战于巨鹿下。今吾每犯役，未尝不在巨鹿也。父之乎？唐对曰：上不如廉颇、李牧之为将也。上伯必曰：嗟乎！吾独不得廉颇、李牧为将，吾岂忧匈奴哉？唐曰：陛下虽得廉颇、李牧，弗能用也。上怒，起入晋中，良久，召唐，让曰：公奈何众如我，独无奸处乎？唐谢曰：彼人不知忌讳。上方以胡寇为义，乃卒复问唐曰：公何以知吾不能用廉颇、李牧也？唐对曰：臣闻上古王者之遣将也，贵而推古，曰：捆以内者，寡人治之；捆以外者，将军治之。军功爵赏皆决于外，归而奏之，此非虚言也。陈大夫言：李牧为赵将，居边，军事之租，皆自用享事，赏赐决于外，不从中附也。委任而则成功，故李牧。乃得尽其智能，选车1300乘，购骑13000，百金之士10万，是以北逐单于，破东湖，灭旦林，西夷强秦，南至韩、魏。当世之时，赵己罢。其后会赵王千里，用郭开禅，卒诛李牧，令严据代之，是以兵破势北，为秦所擒灭。今臣窃闻魏上为云中守，其军事租尽以饷士卒，饲养前5日一追牛，自享宾客、军力、舍人，是以匈奴远避，不尽云中之色。鲁曾一入，上率车骑击之，所杀甚众。夫士卒尽家人子，其田中从军，安之耻疾，五服。终日力战，斩首捕虏，上攻幕府，一言不相应，文吏以法绳之，其赏不行，而立奉法必用。臣愚以为陛下赏太轻，罚太重。且云中守卫上做上宫首虏差6级，陛下下之力，削其爵，罚作之。由此言之，陛下虽得廉颇、李牧，弗能用也。上说。是日，令唐持节射卫上，复以为云中守，而拜唐为车骑都尉。春，赵广增诸司坛场，规避，且曰：吾闻辞官祝喜，皆归服于朕宫，不为百姓，朕甚愧之。夫以朕之不得，而专享独美其服，百姓不与焉，是众无不得也。其令辞官致敬，无有所奇。是岁，河间文王必强薨。初，丞相张苍以为汉得水德，鲁人公孙臣以为汉当土德，其婴黄龙见，苍以为非是，罢之。太宗孝文皇帝下15年丙子，公元前165年春，黄龙见成绩。帝少公孙臣拜为博士，与诸生申明土德，曹改立，服色事。张苍由此自处。夏4月，上使姓雍，交建武帝，赦天下。9月，诏诸侯王、公卿、 郡守举贤良，能直言极谏者，上亲测之。太子嘉令晁错对策高第，擢为中大夫。错右上言夷薛诸侯及法令可更定者书凡30篇。上虽不尽听，然其奇才。是岁，齐文王则河间哀王府皆薨，无子，国除。赵人辛元平以望气鉴赏，言长安东北有神器，成五彩，于是作未阳武帝庙。太宗孝文皇帝下16年丁丑，公元前164年夏4月，上交祀上帝于未阳武帝庙。于是贵辛元平至上大夫，赐累千金，而使博士、诸生赐6经中作王志，谋议巡狩，封善士。又于长门道北立武帝坛，袭淮南王喜父为城阳王，又分其为6国。丙寅，立齐道惠王子在者6人，阳虚侯姜驴为齐王，安都侯志为冀北王，武城侯贤为淄川王，白石侯熊渠为胶东王，平昌侯养为胶西王，厉侯辟光为济南王。淮南立王子在者3人，傅陵安为淮南王，安阳侯伯为衡山王，扬州侯赐为庐江王。秋9月，辛元平使人持玉碑上书阙下献之。平言上曰：阙下有宝玉器来者，以视之，国有献玉碑者，客曰人主延寿。平又言：陈侯日在中，居请之，日阙复中。于是始更以17年为元年，令天下大仆。平言曰：周鼎王在泗水中，今何绝？通于泗，臣望东北焚阴只有金宝器，益州鼎其出乎？召见，不迎则不至。于是上使至庙焚阴南、临河，欲辞出周鼎。太宗孝文皇帝夏后元年戊寅，公元前163年冬10月，人有上书告辛元平所言邪诈也，下立志诛夷平。事后上亦待于改正，服鬼神之事，而魏阳掌门武帝使辞官领，以时治理，不枉焉。春3月，孝惠皇后张氏薨。诏曰：监者数年不登，又有水旱、疾疫之灾，朕甚忧之。愚而不明，未达其咎。义者朕之政有所失，而行有过与。乃天道有不顺，地利或不得，人事多失和，鬼神废不祥与。何以至此？将百官之奉养或废，无用之事或多与。何其民食之寡乏也？夫度田非一寡，而济民为嘉义，以口量地，其余谷有余，而食之甚不足者，其就安在？吾乃百姓之从事于莫以害农者蕃，为久劳以弥谷者多，六畜之食焉者众与。系大之意，吾未得其中，其与丞相、列侯立2000担，博士一之。有可以佐百姓者，率意远思，无有所引。太宗孝文皇帝下2年己卯，公元前162年夏，上行幸雍玉阳宫。6月，代孝王参薨，匈奴连岁入边，杀掠人民，畜产甚多。云中、辽东最甚，郡万余人。上患之，乃使夷匈奴书。单于亦使荡户报谢，复与匈奴和亲。8月，戊戌，丞相张苍免。帝以皇后弟窦广国贤有行，欲相之，曰：恐天下以无私广国，久念不可。而高帝时大臣，余见无可者。御史大夫梁国申图家，故以才官爵张从高帝，封关内侯。庚午，以嘉为丞相，封固安侯。嘉为人廉直，门不受私业。是时，太中大夫邓通方爱幸，赏赐类巨万。帝常宴饮通家，其宠幸无比。嘉常入朝，而通居上旁，有怠慢之礼。嘉奏事毕，因言曰：陛下幸爱群臣，则富贵之；至于朝廷之礼，不可以不肃。上曰：君勿言，吾思之。罢朝，坐府中，嘉为袭赵通议丞相府，不来，且斩通。通恐入言上，上曰：汝帝往，吾今使人召若。通议丞相，免官，图显，顿首谢嘉。嘉坐自如，弗为礼，则曰：夫朝廷者，高帝之朝廷也。通小臣系殿上，大不敬，当斩。帝今行斩之。通顿首，手尽出谢，不解。上度丞相以困通，使持节召通而谢丞相，此无弄臣，均视之。邓通既至，为上泣曰：丞相几杀臣？太宗孝文皇帝下3年庚辰，公元前161年春2月，上行幸代。是岁，匈奴老上单于死，子君陈单于立。太宗孝文皇帝下4年辛巳，公元前160年夏4月，丙寅会，日有食之。5月，赦天下。 上行姓雍。太宗孝文皇帝下5年壬午，公元前159年春正月，上行姓陇西，3月行姓雍，秋7月行姓代。太宗孝文皇帝下6年癸未，公元前158年冬，匈奴3万骑入上郡，3万骑入云中，所杀掠甚众，烽火通于甘泉、长安。以中大夫令免为车骑将军，屯飞狐，故楚相苏毅为将军，屯巨柱，将军张武屯北地，河内太守周亚夫为将军，赐细柳，宗正刘礼为将军，赐霸上，祝子侯徐立为将军，赐棘门，以备胡。上自劳军，至霸上及棘门军，直驰入，将以下齐宋营。以而知细柳军，军士力备甲，锐兵刃，构弓弩持满。天子先驱至，不得入。先驱曰：天子且至。军门都尉曰：将军令曰，军中闻将军令，不闻天子之诏，居无何，上至又不得入。于是上乃使持节召将军，无欲入营劳军。亚夫乃传言，开闭门。闭门士请车骑曰：将军曰，军中不得驱驰。于是天子乃暗配徐行。至营，将军亚夫持兵一曰：借胄之事不败，请以军礼见。天子为动，改容，试车，使人称谢。皇帝敬劳将军，乘礼而去。既出军门，群臣皆惊。上曰：嗟乎，此真将军矣！囊者霸上，棘门军弱而细耳，其将故可袭而虏也。至于亚夫，可得而犯也。称善者久之。月余，汉后至边，匈奴亦远塞，汉兵亦罢，乃拜周亚夫为中尉。夏4月，大旱，黄，令诸侯无入贡。持山泽，减诸服御，损狼力源，发苍雨以赈民，民得麦绝。太宗孝文皇帝下7年甲申，公元前157年夏6月，乙亥，帝崩于未央宫。遗诏曰：朕闻之，盖天下万物之萌生，靡有不死。死者，天地之理，物之自然，奚可甚哀？当今之事，贤家生而饿死，厚葬以破业，重服以伤生，无甚不取。且朕既不得，无在左百姓。今崩，又使众服九邻，以离寒暑之术，哀人父子，伤长老之志，损其饮食，绝鬼神之祭祀，以众无不得，为天下何？朕或保宗庙，以渺渺之身托于天下君王之上，20有余年矣。赖天之灵，社稷之福，方内安宁，靡有兵疾。朕既不敏，常为过行以修先帝之遗德，为年之久长，据于不忠。今乃幸以天年德复供养于高庙，其悉哀念之有。其令天下利民，令道出临3日，皆侍服，无尽娶妇、嫁女、辞祀、饮酒、食肉，自当给丧事服临者，皆无险，迭代无过3寸，无不车及兵器，无发民哭临宫殿中，殿中当临者，皆以旦夕各15举音，礼必罢。非但西临时，尽无得善哭临。以下官服大公15日，小公14日，欠7日，是服。他不在令中者，皆以此令比类从事，布告天下，使明之朕意。霸陵山川因其故，无有所改。归服以下至少使。以4葬霸陵。帝即位23年，公事、苑囿、车骑、服御无所增益，有不便，则持以利民。常欲作露台，召将祭之，值100斤。上曰：100斤，中人10家之产也。吾奉先帝公事，常恐修之，何以台为？深衣一体，所幸慎夫人，衣布业地，帷帐无纹绣，以是敦朴，为天下先。至霸陵，皆瓦器，不得以金、银、铜、锡为饰，因其山，不起坟。吴王诈病不朝，赐以几丈。群臣袁盎等见说虽切，常假借纳用焉。张武等受禄金钱，爵更加赏赐以馈其心，专务以德。化民，是以海内安宁，家己人足，后世先能及之。丁未，太子即皇帝位，尊皇太后博士曰太皇太后，皇后曰皇太后。9月，有兴备于西方。是岁，长沙王吴卓薨，无子，国除。初，高祖贤文王睿至告御史，长沙王中，其令助令。至孝惠、高后时，封睿庶子2人为列侯，传国数世爵。孝景皇帝上元年乙酉，公元前156年冬10月，丞相家等奏，功莫大于高皇帝，德莫胜于孝文皇帝。高皇帝庙，宜为帝者太祖之庙；孝文皇帝庙，宜为帝者太宗之庙。天子一世世，献祖宗之庙， 郡国诸侯仪各为孝文皇帝立太宗之庙。制曰可。夏4月乙卯，赦天下。遣御史大夫卿至代下与匈奴和亲。5月，复收民田半租30而税1。初，文帝除肉刑，外有轻刑之名，内实杀人，斩右指者又当死，斩左指者吃500，当义者吃300，率多死。是岁，下诏曰：加吃重罪无益，幸而不死，不可为人。其定律：吃500约300，吃300约200。以太中大夫周人为郎中令，张欧为廷尉，楚元王子平、陆侯李为宗正，中大夫晁错为左内史。人始为太子舍人，以廉谨德性。张欧亦是帝于太子宫，虽治行名家，为人长者，帝尤是重之，用为九卿。欧为立位常言暗人，专以成长者处官，官属以为长者，亦不敢大欺。2年丙戌，公元前155年冬12月，有兴备于西南，领天下男子年20始父。春3月，甲寅，立皇子德为河间王，鄂为临江王，余为淮阳王，非为汝南王，彭祖为广川王，发为长沙王。夏4月，壬午，太皇太后博士崩。6月，丞相申屠加薨。时内史晁错数请监言事，折听宠幸清九卿，法令多所更定。丞相家自处所言不用，即错。错为内史，东出不便，更穿一门南出。南出者，太上皇庙阮远也。家闻错川宗庙园，为奏请诛错。客有与错，错恐，夜入宫上夜，自归上。至朝，家请诸内史错。上曰：错所穿非真庙园，乃外阮园，故冗官居其中，且诱我使为之，错无罪。丞相加谢。罢朝，家谓长史曰：无悔不先斩错，乃请之，为错所卖。至舍，因呕血而死。错以此遇贵。秋，与匈奴和亲。8月，丁未，以御史大夫开封侯陶青为丞相。丁巳，以内史晁错为御史大夫。彗星出东北。秋，衡山雨雹，大者5寸，深者2尺。荧惑逆行守北辰，月出北辰间，岁星逆行天庭中。梁孝王以窦太后少子故，有宠，王40余城，居天下高于地。赏赐不可胜道，府库金钱且100居万，铸玉宝器多于京师。筑东苑，方300余里，广绥阳城70里，大至宫室，为妇道。自宫连属于平台30余里。招言四方豪俊之士，如吴人梅城、严济、齐人杨胜、公孙轨、邹阳、蜀人司马相如之属，皆从之游。每入朝，上使持节以乘于驷马迎梁王于关下。既至，宠幸无比，入则侍上同辇，出则同车，涉猎上林中。因上书请留，且半岁。梁侍中、郎、业者着急，引出入天子殿门，与汉宦官无异。
Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. More videos available in the playlist collections. Matching ebook included. If you have any suggestions, feel free to let me know.